Let's discuss a feature in PowerPoint that I'd be surprised if more than 10% of PowerPoint users know about this feature. And it's a fantastic little feature. It's called sections. Now let me give you an overview of what a section is going to do for us, and then we'll look how to design it, manipulate it, and implement it. The sections feature allows us to break our PowerPoint slide deck up into pieces or sections. And when you have your PowerPoint broken into sections, accessing and managing the sections becomes much easier. Here I have a 38-slide slide deck. And for most people, all the slides are just arranged in one giant list. And since they all look vaguely the same, trying to pick out one slide from another, like where does lesson 1 begin versus where does it end, can get a bit challenging. But what if we could take this slide deck from one flat linear list like this and turn it into something like this? What you're seeing here are different sections that I've clustered slides into. Now I've minimized them all just to get your attention, but I could right-click on one of these and expand all of these sections, and I can list all of those same slides. Now this doesn't look radically different, but you'll notice this first slide is all by itself. Then the next 3 slides are together, then the next 15, the next 4, the next 9, so on and so forth. When I press F5 and run the show, it looks like a normal PowerPoint presentation. But if you were running a PowerPoint presentation without sections and you wanted to jump to another part of the presentation very quickly, what most users will do is wiggle their mouse. That way they can get the arrow and do a right click and say something like see all slides. And this will bring up that flat linear list. Well, if I'm trying to jump down to the beginning of the quiz in lesson 2, good luck finding that. But when you come from a PowerPoint presentation that uses sections and you right click on the presentation and say see all slides, you're given this view. Now it doesn't look too terribly different, but what's nice about this is we have this beautiful table of contents off on the left side, and I can expand this out to make sure I can read all the headings. So if I wanted to go straight to the quiz in lesson 2, I just find lesson 2 quiz, give it a click, and I'm right there at the first slide in that section. If I want to go to the first quiz, a click, and I'm in that lesson. I could go to the reference card at the end, I could go back to the introductions, and then once you're inside a specific section, you could then double click on any specific slide and jump to it. And finally, the third benefit of sections. When you have one flat linear list of slides, and let's say I only wanted to print the quiz slides from lesson 2, which in this case start on slide 32 and go all the way to slide 36. Well, for most people, we would come up to File, Print, and I want to print all of the slides, but just from a specific range. So I'll come up and change this from all slides to a custom range, and in this case, 32 through 36. But in a PowerPoint slideshow that has sections, when I go up to File, Print, instead of printing all slides, I'll hit the drop down, and now I can go print a specific section. And if I say Listen to Quiz, it's only going to be these 6 slides. If I came up and said Lesson 1 Quiz, it would be these 4 slides. So printing specific slide ranges becomes much easier. If all I want to print is a reference card, I click that, I'm only going to get 1 slide. So let's see how we can implement sections so we can take advantage of all these features. We begin with our single flat list of slides. Now you can think about it this way. PowerPoint actually does use sections by default, but everything's just part of the first section. You then have to cut it up into subsequent sections. So we'll assume slide 1 is going to be our intro section, and the next section will start with slide 2. So if we go to slide 2 and right click, we can go to Add Section. Each section needs a title. So I'll call this one the Overview section. And we can see here that slide 1 is part of the default section, and slide 2 forward is now part of the Overview section. Now while I'm here, I'll go ahead and right-click on the default section and rename it to Introduction. My next section will start with Lesson 1. So everything from this point forward needs to go into the next section. Now another way you can do this instead of the right-click Add Section is to go up to the Home ribbon and choose Add Section from this button. I usually do the right-click. So this one will be called Lesson 1, Basic Mail Merge. That's going to continue down here to section 20, which would start my test for lesson 1. So I'll right-click, add a section, and this will be called lesson 1, test. Lesson 2 starts here on this slide. I'll right-click on it, add a section. Lesson 2, complex mail merge. The test for lesson 2 will start here on slide 32. So we'll right-click, add a section, lesson 2, test. And then finally, our quick reference card is on the last slide, 38. So I'll right-click, add a section, and call it quick reference. Now you can see how these slides have been grouped or chunked into their respective sections. You can, of course, zoom out, and if you zoomed out far enough, you might be able to see every slide in the section dedicated to a single row. Now, what if you wanted to take all of the tests and place them at the end? So if I wanted the Lesson 1 test section to be before the Lesson 2 test section, I don't have to select all of the slides within that section. I can just grab the section heading, which will grab all of the slides in the section, and I can just move it to the appropriate position. And to make dragging through the list of slides easier, the moment you grab a section and start to move it, all of the sections will collapse or minimize. So I can move this back up here after Lesson 1 very easily. Let's say I wanted to take the quick reference card and move it towards the beginning. I might have one quick ref card, I might have 10. It doesn't matter. I can grab the quick reference section and just drag it up, and I could put it after overview. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and grab quick reference and put it back at the end. You can click the little triangles and minimize specific sections, or you could right click and just collapse all of the sections. And this way you may want to focus on just one particular section. Now, if you created a section accidentally, I'm going to right click and expand all the sections again. Let's suppose that the Lesson 2 slides, I didn't mean to section them. They should have been part of the Lesson 1 test. I can right-click on the section heading and choose Rename Section, and that way I could correct something like a spelling error or give it a better name. But I could also right-click and just remove the section. Now, if you do that, all of those slides will then be absorbed into the prior section. I'm going to go back to the first slide in that Lesson 2, right-click, Add a Section, and I'm going to restore that to what it was. Now, if I did not want to do this test, and I wanted to get rid of the section and all the slides contained within, I can right-click and remove the section and its slides. And now all those slides are gone. And then you don't run the risk of accidentally deleting a slide from the prior or after section. And if you want to just get rid of all of the sections and go back to your flat linear list, you can right-click and just remove all the sections. And now we're back to what we started with. I'm going to hit undo and bring those back. Now let's look at using the sections during our presentation. I can go up to the slideshow ribbon and start the slideshow, and then walk through the slideshow hitting my spacebar, going one slide at a time. Nothing is different from an execution point of view whether you're using sections or not. But if you wish to jump to another part of the slideshow, you can wiggle your mouse to get your arrow back and then right-click and choose See All Slides. This will bring up all the slides like we used to, but now that they're in their sections, we could take advantage of this table of contents on the left side of the screen. So if I'm up here at the introduction slide and I want to jump straight to the quick reference, I can just click Quick Reference, and I'm there. Or I can go back to the test for Lesson 1 or jump to the test for Lesson 2. Now, this might not be all that useful in a very small slide deck, but when you have hundreds of slides, this is invaluable. So I'll just go to Lesson 1, Basic Mail Merge, and then click on the first slide in that section. Our final benefit of sections is when we want to print just the slides from a specific section. So as I said in my intro, if I just wanted to print the slides for the Lesson 1 test, that has been built into a section. If I go up to File and then Print, instead of saying Print All Slides, I'll click this button, and I have all the standard slide range selections, but I also now have a list of all my sections. So I don't even have to worry about what slide number does the test start on, what does it end on. If you've moved slides around and the numbers change, or if you've added questions to the test or taken questions out, you don't have to concern yourself with that. You just go say, I want this particular section, and those are the only slides that you're going to get. If you change that to a different section, then you'll get those slides. So from being able to print only specific sections, being able to do a right-click See All Slides during a show and navigate via a table of contents, as well as being able to go into the slide sorter and collapsing all of your slides into sections and then making them easier to move around, managing a slide deck with many slides and not using sections is almost unthinkable. Have you used sections before? Do you love them as much as I do? Let me know in the comments. And feel free to download both the starter file and the finished file from the link in the video description, so that way you can practice it if you don't have a slide deck of your own to use this on. Thank you for watching, and remember, at BCTI, the learning never stops.